Danny, as we transition into running backs here, I'm asking everybody this and hoping that all of the great draft minds can kind of slow me down on Breece Hall. He's somebody who I just felt like I was going to get everywhere. Thinking this guy is underrated, undervalued. He's going to be kind of the focal point of what I do in 2022. And then he has that combine, and now I'm thinking, well, he's not going to be undervalued anymore. But now I'm even more ridiculously high on him than I was.
Yeah.
So help me put this better into context. How does he compare with guys like Harris, Williams, Taylor? Who's his best comp among recent names, obviously going beyond just those players?
So this is not an analytical comp at all. It's a stylistic comp. And I actually gave him this before the combine. This is just based on me watching him. I compared him to Antonio Gibson. I think just based on the way he runs, the explosiveness, the short area burst. And I think those like comp well. I don't think he's necessarily like an elite tackle breaker type guy. He's not like, running through tackles and blowing people up like Javonte Williams or whatever. So I don't think he really comps to Javonte Williams or Jonathan Taylor, who is in his own stratosphere, really. But I think Antonio Gibson is a good comp because he's got that breakaway speed. I think he showed that with running his 40. I think people were kind of underrating that a little bit coming into the combine, and so they were surprised. I don't know if, obviously there's some discussion that every one of the running backs ran faster than like a standard time because the field was fast. They had to put a new track down. They had to put new turf down at the stadium, and so everyone was running a little bit fast. But regardless, I think he showed that he has speed. He has breakaway speed. So he's a guy. So I guess I would say second tier. I don't think he's an elite tier in terms of like his overall athleticism and profile, but I think he's good. Like he was my clear cut RB1 before the combine, and now I'm like, okay, that is validating, and I feel good about it. And now I can feel pretty good about taking him like first overall, even in Superflex, honestly. So I think I think he's a really good prospect, and I'm really excited to have him on teams. Of course, you're gonna have to have an early pick, like top 2, top 3, probably, to get him.
And the fun part of that, then, obviously, we're looking at Dynasty. Have you thought of where you might be slotting him in if he goes, in a good spot in the draft in terms of redraft leagues?
Ooh, that's tough. Overall,
the second round,
probably. Yes, probably. I mean, especially after seeing like Javonte Williams this year, like be a top 10 pick or whatever he is now in redraft. Not in redraft, sorry, in like startups. People are really, really high after 1 year just seeing what Javonte Williams was able to do. Like, you kind of got to take a stab at these guys because their value can just skyrocket, and then you can't get them, right? You can't get Jonathan Taylor now unless you're giving up the farm. You can't get Javonte Williams unless you're giving up the farm. And I think he's more explosive and more sudden and more elusive than a guy like Najee Harris, who is really living on volume. And so I think you can get Najee because people are less bullish on him. But like at this time next year, like you won't be able to trade for Breece Hall unless he gets hurt, knock on wood, something like that. Because I think he's gonna shoot up and be like one of those, foundational type players in a year from now.
Yeah, and we touched on it in the first show of the week when we talked about going and trying to get those running backs in rookie drafts. But the thing with a lot of those rookies, even you mentioned there, if he gets injured, a lot of the guys who go with the higher prospect profile heading in will still maintain quite a bit of that value. But the guys outside of those top picks, that value can disappear fairly quick. So I think he should be a pretty safe pick. And like Shawn, we're getting very excited here about Breece Hall as well. The other guy in this class that there's buzz around is Kenneth Walker. There was some concerns coming in around athleticism. You touched there on the possible faster track at the combine this year.
Yeah.
Had you concerns over him coming in? Was there questions to be answered? And did that 40 help those concerns maybe?
Yeah. I think it did. I mean, again, like how much weight do we put into the idea that this was a faster track? Like, or can we just like actually just believe what they ran at the NFL Combine? Like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean?
What's going to happen then is when they go to their pro days, we're going to say, "Oh, it's not officially timed." And then, when you talked about the Senior Bowl, and we're saying, like, I would love if they all just ran in pads. I know we want to compare it. We want to compare it to historical comps, but like these guys aren't going to be running in shorts and t-shirts when it comes to Sundays.
So, but like at the end of the day, it did answer some questions I had because I think he has a couple runs. Kenneth Walker had a couple runs where he's like running away from the defense. And you could see that speed on tape. It's not like he's getting caught from behind a lot. I think there are very few running backs in the NFL that aren't going to get caught from behind by like a cornerback or whatever. But I do think he has that speed, and that answers some of my questions. I'm not really that concerned about it one way or the other though. Like I think what really stands out to me is like the suddenness and explosiveness. Again, going back to last show, in the short area that is very apparent on his tape. In fact, I comped him to Tim Hardaway. If you guys know basketball from like the 90s, like the killer crossover. He's just the type of guy that like in a very short area can get guys like flailing and like breaking their ankles. And you see him running up the middle of the field, and he's got like, he gets in the second level. There's a linebacker right there, and he just jukes the crap out of him and keeps going. And like, to me, that's like way more important than if he can like hit the home run. Like, obviously that's a nice bonus, but like his ability to kind of like make guys miss in the short area, pick up extra yards. I think there's a reason he had so much production. And so like, I think all that, like the tackle breaking, the agility, the burst, the short area quicks, all that stuff makes him like my second favorite running back in this class. The big question, of course, is can he catch? And so I guess that's why I comped him to Dobbins. Because like, I think you go into the league where pass catching is a big question mark, but explosiveness, elusiveness, burst, all that stuff, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a really good runner in the NFL. And then, from there, hopefully they can get him involved. Like, hopefully there's just this caveat that Michigan State just didn't want him to be involved in the pass game because he was so heavily utilized on the ground, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. That's kind of the hope you have. And of course, that's the risk that comes with him, is that he just will never be a pass catcher.
Yeah, I touched on this a few weeks ago with the show with Shawn, but you mentioned AJ Dillon earlier, and I've listened to a few AJ Dillon interviews being a Packers fan, and he says that like the reason he didn't catch the ball in college was because they just ran over teams and they didn't need to catch the ball. So
yeah,
so we could see something similar here, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's every case is different, I guess, and so you have to like use that context. But like with AJ Dillon, yeah, like that was obvious. They didn't pass to their receivers either. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were just running the ball. So, again, it's just something that you have to kind of keep in mind, and it probably does like knock him down slightly, and that's why I have Breece Hall as like the clear number one, because I think Breece Hall at least showed like he's comfortable catching the ball. He's got natural hands. He's not fighting the ball when it's coming into his body. He's not bobbling it constantly, all that stuff. And I think Walker just has more to prove just because there's such a small sample right now. But I'm pretty damn confident in his ability as a runner. And I think he's going to have really good draft capital. Like he's going to be early day 2 likely, or mid day 2. Or I should say mid second round, not day 2. If I was going to guess, that's probably where it'd be. I don't know if there's a first rounder in this group, just based on the way the NFL drafts. Like freaking Jonathan Taylor was a second rounder. So it just depends. Only takes one team, but it just depends. I think right now I'd probably safely say second round for both those guys.
And I just have to follow up once more on Walker here, because he does get so exciting based on the things that we're hearing, based on the combine. The name that pops out in the RotoViz Workout Explorer, so just again athletic comps, not the box score scout that also has the production comps mixed in, was Ray Rice. But the difference there is that Rice had, if we exclude special teams players, had the second best 3-cone behind Christian McCaffrey. And both of those two guys, when they cut, they leave everybody in the other area of the field and they go. But you're saying that Walker has this cutting ability, even though the running back position decided not to do those drills.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I've gotten a good answer. I think the initial thing was, all the running backs decided together not to do it. But I think I heard the NFL was like, it's too late. Like the drills have gone on too long. It's too late. We're just like dropping this. So I don't know what actually happened.
They had
but
put
regardless,
the cones away.
Which again is another reason for them to move it
gone.
off of prime time. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know what he would run. It'll be interesting to see if he runs at his pro day, the 3-cone. But like just based on the tape, I would guess he's very quick. Like he's making guys miss again in a phone booth. Like that's the term I like to use, just because he, like, if you picture, it's not like he's bouncing the ball out and making guys miss that way. Like that's something certainly that he can do. But like I'm talking about like making guys miss when you're in a crowd. And that means like quick burst. The the anticipation to like set guys up with like a shoulder fake and then juke the other way kind of deal. He just has a natural ability to literally leave guys like jumping like through a cloud of dust. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like jumping and grasping at nothing because he's just like made them completely miss.
So Isaiah Spiller had a lot of encouraging elements to his profile too. And maybe the one thing was he didn't have this standout trait. And we've talked about standout traits as being important. But what was the tape telling you in terms of his results and now potential injury? I can't imagine somebody, either themselves or their agent, their entourage, allowing them to do any of these workouts if you're not 100%, because you're not going to test well and then you're going to look bad.
Right.
But I mean, he's somebody I was pretty excited about.
When I watched purely based on tape, and my first impression was like, this guy's really good. I know that there are analytically some question marks about like him, going forward. And I think that's fair. And that's probably why I have him as my third running back. But just watching him on tape, he's another guy like Walker who has incredible like juke ability. Like he'll cut in the short area and like make guys miss. He has ability to create for himself at the second level because he's so quick, and that burst is there. So I think that's like very important. He's a little more leggy, I guess. He's a little bit like high cut relative to like a guy like Walker who's very like short and stout, I guess. And so maybe that's a concern, but I think overall, like I was really excited watching him play. I think he's a good player. He may fall a bit compared to Breece and Kenneth Walker. But if he gets a chance, like I still think he's going to be a productive player. He's someone I'm willing to take in drafts, I think. But I'm a little less, I guess, excited about him or whatever. But maybe this is a good example of going back to last show of like scooping up a guy that like the dynasty community sours on a little bit during the pre-draft process. Just because like they didn't like what happened at the combine or whatever, like people just kind of turn on him. He's the kind of guy that I'd definitely like be willing to take a flyer on, not a flyer because you're gonna have to give up a relatively good pick, but I'd be still excited to take him in a rookie draft.
And I've got at least seven names down here as intriguing small backs, and I've always been excited about these guys. I like the players who catch passes, who potentially run to daylight, who are fast, who are going to have to overcome being small, and who don't cost as much, because that's important for a lot of the things that we do.
Exactly.
Who should we be looking at in this draft? And again, since it's not that deep in terms of bell cows and potential stars, who should we be looking at among the small backs who could end up sometime down the line as a running back too?
So in this list, the two guys that stand out to me the most are Tyler Beatty and James Cook. I think Jerome Ford is certainly another guy who's very interesting, and I'll probably be scooping up in drafts. Tyler Beatty, his elite production last year makes you kind of sit up and pay attention. Obviously, he's a little bit shorter or a little bit smaller, not as heavy as some of these other like quote unquote 3 down backs or whatever, but he did produce at a high level with high volume for Missouri last year. So I think he's definitely a really interesting guy, and he's got that pass catching ability that some team is going to use on third down. Like he's kind of like in the James White role mold, I guess, like where, you can utilize him on early downs. He's a good runner. And when James White gets like the ball as a runner, like he does good things, but more likely you're going to see this guy like in a pass catching role for some team. And if he can land with the team that really likes him as that third down back, like, you got an RB2 on your hands, potentially more, and you're going to get him cheap probably. And then James Cook, I think, is another one that's very interesting because, again, he's like actually a pretty good runner. I think like with Georgia, the way that they split their reps, it's hard to really tell exactly like how much you can take from that. Like they have all these 4 and 5 star guys that he's going up against Zamir White, who's a 5-star recruit, and Georgia is just going to get everybody their touches, right? It doesn't necessarily mean, we saw Zamir White as a better runner. It's just that we've got 2 4 and 5 star guys that we got to get the ball to. Because James Cook, I believe, was a 4-star. But he's again, he wanted to, what I heard at the combine was he wanted to do everything at like the post, like the Senior Bowl and at the combine as a receiver. He wanted to do receiver stuff because he's that good as a pass catcher. I don't think they would let him for whatever reason, but like that's like his mindset. He wants to be a pass catcher. And he came in, I think, bigger than they were expecting. He's like 200 pounds, 199 pounds. So I think I'm very excited about Cook, I think in particular, because when you watch him run, I don't know how to explain, like the Dalvin Cook family has this, they both of them have the same running style. Like it's like a skip. It's almost like they're skipping sometimes where their feet get kind of close together and they make guys miss by just like, again, I can't really like explain it with words, but like if you see it, it's like their feet get really close together and then they like jump and like make guys miss when they're diving at their feet, and they're just like so elusive that way. And so, Dalvin Cook, I don't think ran or was like as explosive as you'd expect. And James Cook, I think he ran really well, not necessarily for his size, but like he ran like in the 4.4s. I think both of those guys just have natural running ability, natural talent to evade tacklers. And so, maybe the NFL is going to look at Cook being Dalvin's brother, and that'll push him up boards a little bit. I could see him being a third rounder. So he's definitely a guy I'm excited about.
Did you enjoy that clip? Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get more content from RotoViz. And of course, you can check out full-length podcasts at rotoviz.com/podcast. Available on all podcast platforms. Check out our wide range of content. Once again, rotoviz.com/podcast.